Hey everybody, this is Brian here with Hogshooter Hot Rods. Hey, if you're new to the channel, welcome and so glad to have you. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Tick the bell so you can get the latest content. Trying to expand things, push them out, get videos made on a regular basis for you all. Really kind of enjoying doing this, and I've had some requests to start doing a little bit of more basic, more tutorial style of videos. So I'm getting ready to start dry blocking a car here, and what better thing to do than to start a series on sanding blocks and kind of what I would look for. So let's just get right into it. Alright, so first thing, I think we ought to go Norm Abram on it and just talk a little bit about safety. So when you're sanding, you're creating dust, and that dust is like just clogging up your sinuses at the very least. At the very worst, it could go down into your lungs. So, you know, they make a lot of dust masks. I certainly know with coronavirus, everybody's kind of familiar with the different styles of masks out there. I'm not even going to bother to show those cheaper masks. This is like a go-to that I use for block sanding. Okay, it has pink filters on there that are replaceable. Okay, you see it's NIOSH and it's a P100 rated filter, so that's like the most effective and efficient filter for filtering out dust. I'm not talking about germs or anything else like that, only dust. So works very, very good. Got a pretty comfortable mask here. This is a 3M, and it's a 7502 is the part number. That's just for the mask itself, that's not the filters. But you can buy these filters, use them to sand, and then you can change them out with an organic vapor cartridge and use it to paint. So it'll serve you well if you buy one. They come apart, you can clean them up and take care of them. The only thing that kind of goes bad is this elastic on there, but you can buy all those pieces from 3M and maintain this mask. If you don't want to spend money on something like this, they make disposables that are relatively cheap. I mean, this mask is going to set you back about $42. A disposable is going to cost you $23. By the time you buy two disposables, you paid for the better mask. So I think it's a good deal. And you know, you just kind of pick and choose what you want to use, but protect your lungs. You just get one set of them. So after the lung protection, let's talk about things that we use to make dust. So if we're priming and we're blocking, I'm going to assume that we're trying to make a car pretty flat and straight so that it looks nice when it's all done. I've got a DA sander here. This will not be your friend because the pad's so small. You have such a small interface there. It's tough to block big panels with a DA and ever get them straight. This is more brand new sheet metal, sanding that, getting it ready to put the primer on. Those kind of things inside of jams. If you got to knock some body filler down real quick, or you know, maybe you got to run in your primer and you need to knock that down, that's where this tool will come in. But it's not primarily for blocking primer. It is more just for quick, get it sanded and move on type of stuff. So you know, there's history with everything, and sanding blocks are no different. This is not the oldest. You know, these are from a ways back. I mean, I graduated from a school in Okmulgee back in the late 80s, and this is where it was at. This was a Hutchins AF11. So It has the actual part number there on it, AF11, and then this, if it was Hutchins, it would be an AF16, but I've actually taken this one and I put a really nice shoe on the bottom of it. Back in the day when we were blocking a lot of stuff. I'll still pull these out occasionally, but they're pretty rigid. I've actually worn blisters on myself with this before. I like it because it is so rigid and it's fairly comfortable to use. Spend a lot of time holding it like this, but it's got handles so you can push it like this. Yeah, brings back some memories just sitting here holding it right now. So we've got something that I think is cool is it's got these clips on there. That's for the old style sandpaper that wasn't stick it or Velcro style paper. You know, it wasn't adhesive, it wasn't Velcro, it was just paper with sand on it that you put on your sanding block. So I've got it set up here. I've got 180 sandpaper stuck to it, and then I put a piece of 120 over the top of it. So I could block with 120, then switch over, take that 120 off, and then hit it with the 180. When we were blocking big jobs back when I first started, we would stack up about 4 sheets of sandpaper on here at a time. That way you could block. When you wore that piece of sandpaper out, you would go on to a new piece. So we've got that. The 16, do the same thing. You got these little hooks here that the paper goes underneath. You clip it down to hold the paper tight on there, and even when you held the paper tight, it would still move slightly on these blocks because there was no adhesive or Velcro to hold it in place. So that kind of made it a rough deal. We stopped using these for that very reason. Started using adhesive backed sandpaper so that you didn't lose that motion in your paper there. So those things. Then you know, when we're talking about sanding blocks, virtually anything can become a sanding block. I've seen guys that planed wood, and they would take a piece of wood and plane it super flat and attach sandpaper to it and use that for their sanding block. I've got just a common piece of PVC pipe here. It's nice and round in a certain contour. That would work great. And you can see I've cut it to be just about the same size as a normal sanding block is, like a small little block for wet sanding. So yeah, PVC pipe works, but you know, you could go as big as you want with that. A stir stick, just a wooden stir stick, will work also. These 3 things typically will use when I'm color sanding and I'm taking out dirt nibs, or I've got some special area to take care of. You can see they're all cut the same length so that my sandpaper wraps up on them nice. Back in the days when we were not dry sanding everything, we were wet sanding. This is a aluminum stir stick. I've watched a few other videos out there on YouTube, and guys they make a big deal about it. They're saying, oh, I've got a billet sanding block. Well, yeah, you do. Probably made this particular block about 25, 26 years ago. It is the length of a piece of wet sandpaper. Back when we were wet sanding everything, we would start on the primer with 240, use this block, cut it down, and then go to a smaller block with, say, 400 grit, 320 grit, something like that. But the wet sanding days are kind of over, and everybody dry sands now. But if you want to see more about wet sanding, put it in the comments. I'll talk about it as long as you want, because I've done a ton of it. So here, this is probably one of the premier sanding block makers now. I say premier not because they're like hands and feet above the rest, but because everybody has started using them. I mean, any shop that I go into, these are the sanding blocks that guys are using. So these are DuraBlock brand, okay, all these will be. This one is one that does not come in a kit, okay? It's kind of a shape, I guess it's supposed to be that way. That's a teardrop shape, okay, for sanding in oddball places. It's got a nice fat radius on it, if you needed to use that. Then I have, this is just a small, round block. The only thing that makes this nicer than a piece of PVC pipe is it's a little bit flexible, so you can flex it and get into some areas. Then I have a small square block. All right, it's about the size of my old aluminum stir stick there. So I know a piece of wet sandpaper would wrap around that, but use these primarily for dry sanding. One thing I will say about these DuraBlocks is if you look down that block, it is actually taken a set and it's kind of curved a little bit. I know if I'm trying to block sand something and I want to get it straight, my block should probably be straight to get it that way. I just noticed that a minute ago, so I'm going to have to set something on that and leave it that way. Then these are my two primary blocks that I use. Just like those other older blocks, this one is an 11-inch block. This one is a 16-inch block. Pretty standard in the Autobody industry. 11 and 16-inch, those are your two primary go-to blocks to use on large panels. I have another block, but I couldn't pull it out right now. But that thing is 30 inches long. They sell these in huge lengths. The Fiat's not going to need anything that long. This will be plenty long enough for it. So we have all those different options for sanding blocks, and we talk about sanding blocks, we should talk about sandpaper just for a second. So I've got rolls of this sandpaper here, and this is self-adhesive paper, okay? It's PSA is what they call it, pressure sensitive adhesive. So it is going to stick relatively well on these sanding blocks here. Pretty easy to apply. You just roll it out, stick it on there, and go to sanding. If you, for chance, your block gets to where the sandpaper is not sticking very well on it, you can take a little bit of lacquer thinner or maybe wax and grease remover, spray that, wipe it, and then set it over and let it dry good, and your sandpaper will stick great after that. Don't put any kind of adhesive on these because you'll ruin them. So I have 320 grit and 180 grit sandpaper here. These are going to be my two primary grits that I'm going to use when I'm dry prepping cars. I will start out with the 180, and then I will move to the 320 and take out all my 180 scratches. After I get done with the 320, I might go back with a finer grit. It just kind of depends on where we're at. The 320 is fine enough that I can spray a sealer over and it will fill in any minute little scratches. So I've also got a roll of 120 right here, and like on my stuff that I want really straight, I'll do all the body work. I'll prime that dude down, guide coat it, block it with 120, hit it with 180, reprime, and then start with 180 and then final block with 320. Sounds like a lot of work because it is a lot of work. You don't get really straight flat panels easily. You have to put some time in. I see all kinds of videos and different things, guys like working their tails off, working sheet metal, get it down where there's no body filler needed, and then we got to prime it, and we got to put 6 coats of primer on there to get it straight. So I'm not down talking anybody's work. It's just a little bit of body filler is not a big deal in the cars that I do. Maybe someday I'll be doing cars that are nice enough to need that type of attention. Couple more things before I end here. I've got some guide coat. You can use about anything for guide coat, but this is aerosol, and this will spray on, and it's very easy to go in and block right after you spray it. It doesn't stay wet and clog up sandpaper. All right, speaking of clogged up sandpaper, I made this little thing a long time ago. This took some oxyacetylene welding rod. Notice I didn't call it TIG rod because it's been back a while. And when your sandpaper was clogged up, you just take this thing and slap that sandpaper with it, knock the loose stuff off. Nowadays, the primers we use, they don't stick so bad. So I usually just keep me a piece of red Scotch-Brite close by, and I'll wipe that with the red Scotch-Brite. That'll knock all the dust off, and then we can keep on sanding. I don't like to use a blowgun. A lot of guys will blow the blocks out, blow the car off, and if you do that, you're going to blow dust everywhere, and you know, everybody's got to breathe that air. So if you use just a simple, I think this came from Harbor Freight, it was on the dollar aisle. You know, I've got to admit some things from the freight are pretty decent. These little brushes, I had a guy with me that called it a foxtail brush. Whatever, it's just a large chip brush to clean up, but make sure if you're using it on your panels to broom off the dust and stuff, that you haven't used it to sweep oily stuff into the dustpan. We want to keep all of our panels oil free. Some guys want to wear latex gloves, that kind of stuff. I just learned to always keep a towel, like not a beach towel, but just a blue shop towel, paper towel, in between my hand and the panel to keep from getting oils off my skin on it. Because hey, I sweat, and I know you do too. So some other stuff, you know, a person wants to have music. Hey, I picked up this little tri-bit speaker here, Bluetooth, and man, it'll play all day long off a charge. Gets really loud. I really like this thing. I've got a big stereo in here for my shop, but through the years, the radio stations, they've gone digital. So my big JVC stereo system, she don't work no more. So, you know, have you a nice little sound system so you can sand to the rhythm, or just not be bored, right? I'm out here, I work by myself almost all the time, and I'm happy with that. I'm okay with doing the work myself. So, hey, we're gonna end the video there. I hope that you all have a wonderful week, and you know, I'll be seeing you. Remember, if you like what I'm producing here, give it a thumbs up. Be sure to comment if you want to see some other content, and subscribe to the channel.